Welcome to That's Why We're Friends.
The podcast where we laugh a lot, talk about real life, and hold on to faith through it all.
We're two friends navigating the oldish season of life and celebrating the kind of friendships that make it all a little easier.
So whether you're feeling overwhelmed, hopeful, or just need a laugh, this podcast is for you.
Pull up a chair and join the conversation. Hey, Kara.
Hey, Sarah.
So one of the reasons why we're friends is we both love Thrive Market. So I've been a member for a while now. I still love it. So imagine getting organic groceries, your pantry staples, even personal care, all at discounted members-only prices.
I know, it's wild. You sign up, use our special link, and your first order gets you 30% off, plus you pick out up to $60 in free items, automatically added at checkout on a pantry order of at least $25.
That's a really great deal. And once you're there, you're going to see the range of products they have is amazing. Over 5,000 from gluten-free and vegan to non-GMO and paleo options. They even have their own Thrive Market brand that saves you a ton. And I can personally recommend the Thrive Market Blonde Roast Coffee. I had that this morning. I have it almost every morning. And so there's so many great things to check out.
That sounds yummy. I save on every household order. Massive value with fast, carbon-neutral shipping. And if you don't recoup your membership fee in the first year, they give you the difference in Thrive Cash. Can you believe that?
I cannot. Thrive Cash is another bonus. So click our link, get 30% off and up to $60 in free products, and discover healthy shopping without compromise.
Seriously, try it. You're going to love it as much as we do. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Kara.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Really loving, again, just the conversation that we're having this month and all the things with women's health. And it's been just really cathartic, I feel like, to even, talk about these stories and these journeys and some of the questions that we've asked each other, had these really great moments. And so just praying and hoping that it's the same for our listeners, God's just, bringing some revelation and some healing. And, again, I just feel like there's so much excitement and energy with this time of year and kicking things off and the newness of everything. So I'm doing great. I'm loving it. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah. My hope for our listeners is that, they just hear this message of letting God into their story around food and body image. And, it's been so enjoyable, and we've had a little bit of good feedback from people. And so, I'm just ready to rock it and keep moving.
I think the biggest thing is just the starting with the belief that God cares about this area of your life. He cares about this part of your story.
Right.
And he wants to be a part of it. He has answers for you.
Yeah.
And he wants so badly to have this conversation and to show us what freedom looks like in this area, which is great because that's really kind of where we're headed today. I'm talking about you and I both have experienced just an incredible journey of freedom with the Lord when it comes to food and body image and our minds. And so I'm just excited that we get to kind of share a lot of that today.
Yeah, me too. So last week we did talk about our backstory. So if you didn't hear last week's episode, be sure that you kind of just pause here, jump back and listen to last week, and then hop back in with us, because we talked about sort of the underlying current for both of us in our lives were these lies that were put into our head, starting in childhood and, then just moving into adulthood, where we built our Lego blocks of lies, one on top of the other, and, let the enemy come in and build that wall. And so, but then we talked about for both of us, where there was this shift where God opened our eyes to see there is something that's broken here, and where he began to restore that and redeem it. So today we're going to talk about the healing part of it and how that looked moving through healing, and then how it looks for us today.
Yeah. So some kind of last week we started this kind of back and forth of questions to help us kind of zoom in on some things. And so the first one I have is what old beliefs about food did you have to let go of?
I think there were several for sure. I think the first belief I had to let go of was that food itself was good or bad. You know, that's just a
big one.
That's a huge one. And I know a lot of people deal with that. And honestly, I didn't even know that was a thing I dealt with,
Right.
good or bad. But what I did know that I dealt with was thinking that food made me good or bad.
Yes.
And so I think I related, you know, a chicken breast to I am good, and I related ice cream to I am bad. And therefore, you know, the food itself was good or bad and made me good or bad. And so I think that, and then I think also letting go of feeling like I couldn't eat a certain quantity of food, and just feeling like I had to control the certain things that I ate, you know, and not take in too much food.
Right.
And so, you know, just coming from that mentality of like less is better for your body, which in reality is not always the case.
Right.
So,
For
yeah.
sure.
What about you? Did you have some lies that you had to unwind?
A lot of the same. Yeah, I mean, the good and bad, just there could be morality tied to food. I mean, when you really think about it, and it's super common. I've heard it. There was a time in this journey, I remember I was like a coffee shop or something, and there were these women in there and that were going to order something, and the comment she made was like, yeah, I'm going to be bad today. So I'm going to do this. And it was just, like a punch in the gut, because that, I mean, you think about what you're actually saying.
Sure.
That I am a good person because I ate carrots versus I am a bad person because I ate carrot cake.
Right.
But we really, there is truth in that. And so that was that was a big part of it, that good or bad food then made me good or bad.
Right.
I think the other one about food was recognizing that I seemed to have this belief that a plate of something or this particular XYZ food had the power and the capability to make me feel a certain way, to bring me comfort, to soothe something in me, like at a deep level. And I mean, there is some truth to the chemical makeup of food and endorphins and, you know, sugar and all those things, but I don't mean in that sense. I mean in a deep, like, spiritual sense. Like, my soul is hurting.
Yeah.
And if I go eat this, it's going to make my soul feel better.
Right.
And that, I mean, it usually was actually the opposite. That would leave me feeling worse because it was part of this, you know, unhealthy pattern or cycle. So it was part of this revelation that I think this, you know, plate of nothing, like, has the ability to somehow meet an emotional need or heal a spiritual wound. Like the power, I would say, that I had given food in my life to make me feel a certain way, that I had believed certain things. I think those were two of just the biggest things to kind of unlock, to recognize how I viewed food and how I tied it to all these other things versus thinking about it as, you know, energy or fueling my body. And yes, the enjoyment piece of it, but the big distinction that the Lord made with me about food and enjoyment was, when you think about a party, if you have a party, a room, you know, a house full of people and full of all this great food, if you take the people away and you still have the food, is that still a party that I want to be at? Versus if you have all the people but you take away all the food, is that a party?
Right.
And so for me, it's like, full of people, then it's still a party. So just that recognition of, like, no, your joy and your celebration is really primarily in the people. And yes, enjoy the food. Like, let that complement and be a part of the celebration. We see that in scripture, breaking bread and having fellowship together. But it's about the fellowship of the people, where my heart was tied more to the food. And he wanted to tie my heart more to people.
Yeah. No, that's true. And when you look at scripture and all the celebrations and that are centered around food, they're centered around food looking at God. They're never centered around just food.
Yeah.
We weren't given feast in the Bible just to
worship
be about the
food.
food. Right. It's about worshiping God and about remembering his faithfulness and his goodness in our lives. And
that's a great distinction.
Yeah. And what you said about, you know, how feeling like this plate of something could actually like fulfill you. I mean, that's like a strong descriptor of, you know, disordered eating, and which we talked about last week, like how we both had issues with our eating patterns, is that you will feel like if I eat this, I'm going to feel better. And there is an immediate, I feel worse. Like as soon as you're done eating, I feel worse. I mean, that is like key number one. I have disordered eating, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's a lot to take in for sure. Do you feel like that you had lies that you believed about your body that God dismantled for you in all of your healing process?
Yeah, definitely. And I touched on that a little bit last week, that I just bought into life was a cycle of always trying to make my body better, which for me, better equaled smaller. And so just the belief that that was normal to always be on a diet or finishing a diet or going to start a diet, like that there was never a time to just be still and be at peace and say, this is my body. Like, this is my body. Like, I'm not going to try to change it or conform it or force it into a number. Like, what if I just, you know, be healthy and eat and just, here I am.
Right.
And so it was really kind of a dysfunctional relationship with my own body, because I couldn't just be at peace with what it was and like the way that God made me. And so that was, I mean, I mentioned it last week, probably just the biggest moment of freedom with just getting a glimpse of there is a different way. Because I didn't realize how exhausting it was until I saw like the other way, that my mind could be filled with something other than, what did I just eat? What am I going to eat? What am I going to do later? I'm going to a party later. What am I going to do? Am I going to eat before I go and then just not eat it all there? Or do I trust myself to go? Like so much of my time from the moment I woke up till trying to fall asleep at night was filled with thinking about what I ate or was going to eat or what fit or didn't fit.
Right.
And so getting free from that and recognizing the exhaustion that I was living in.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Yeah, no, mine is very similar. I mean, it was just this constant like cycle and battle of exactly what you said. Like, what am I going to eat? What's going to be at the party? You know, should I eat before I go? Those kinds of things. And my body isn't good enough because it doesn't fit in this size, you know, or comparing my body to my body 10 years previous, you know, which there's a huge, as women for sure, there's this huge shift in our lives as we get older. Our hormones change, right? You know, some of us have babies, some of us, whatever, we go through these things. And so our bodies change. I'll never forget being in high school. We talked about last week how we were both on, you know, dance team and being in high school and making a comment. There were several of us, like, you know how girls will just stand around and like bash their own bodies and the other girls around, like, let them, you know, and I remember there were several of us sort of doing that body bashing. We didn't bash each other's bodies, but like ourselves. Right. And, one of the girls that was on my dance team that is actually still a friend of mine today, she runs an amazing marketing company. She like kind of walked up in this conversation and she was appalled. And she was the first person I ever heard like stand up for a woman's body. And she was like, God forbid that your body should change and grow as you get older and you might develop hips. And she just like walked away. And we were all like, whoa, okay. You know, so it was just like this, like, oh yeah, kind of revelation of like, okay, yeah, but that didn't help my cycle necessarily. But I remember that moment and thinking how brave she was to walk into this group of girls just bashing their own bodies and like, be like, y'all need to stop. You're fine. And so, yeah, it was just definitely like unwinding all the things that had built up from childhood, you know, so.
Well, and I think that is awesome for her to like have that self-awareness at that age that she was, because I do think even now in all circles of women that is accepted as the norm, that I'm not satisfied in my body, that it's not good enough, that I need to be a size smaller, that I need, and like we just accept that that's part of being a woman, and that is a lie from the devil. That is not true at all. That is not God's plan.
Right.
For us.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not okay to let our friends sit around and talk negatively about their bodies either.
Right.
So, yeah. And I feel like as adult women, at least the circle I run in, people would step in and be like, that's not true, but there's definitely been times in my life where that wasn't the case in the circle I was in. And so it was like we fed off of each other for sure.
Yep. And I think it just became almost even this unspoken pressure that like, you can't just say that you're good in your body, because am I going to be judged then? Are they going to think I'm like prideful or whatever if I'm like, no, actually I like my body, like I'm good, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So one of the things we haven't really talked about, but I think it's an important part of what being healthy looks like, is the idea of rest. And so how has the Lord brought that into the conversation with you when it comes to being healthy, like in your body and in your mind?
Yeah, for me, I think that it actually happened to me, doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was sort of during the COVID year, in 2020. I remember listening to a podcast with a CrossFit athlete on there, and her talking about how she takes 2 full days a week to rest. And I was like, how is that possible? How are you strong and healthy if you're not exercising 7 days a week, and moving like hardcore 7 days a week? And she was talking about like all the science behind like how important rest days are. Wow. And so for me, that was kind of the moment where I thought, wow, okay, I do need to be taking some days off. And so it's been an ongoing process. And I actually feel like I almost went too far to the other extreme, and then we talked about that last week too, is like how we can have these extremes of, I went from like hardcore 7 days a week, sometimes 2 workouts a day. Wow. If my kids had practice or whatever, I'd be like, I'm going to run for 30 minutes while they're doing practice, no matter that I had already done an hour-long workout, in the morning. And to like rest all the time, and so there's this balance. But for me now, I feel like the Lord is showing me that I need to take at least 2 days a week and do that sort of intentional active recovery of stretching, yoga. For me, that's like very like soothing recovery. And so, I kind of do more a little bit of the harder workouts, 3 or 4 days a week, and then 2 or 3 days a week I do that rest. And I feel like I'm learning that rest is actually an act of worship too. And it's so important. So yeah, how about you? Are you feeling like there's a season of rest in your life?
It's interesting because I would say my journey with working out has been different through the decades. I hated working out, and hate's a strong word, but it was a means to an end. When I was trying to always lose weight and I worked out because, that was like my trade-off. Sure. If I ate this, well, then I got to make sure I go.
You have to punish yourself.
So it was part of the system. Right. It wasn't, a joy thing. And then, I discovered yoga, and very much the athletic version of yoga.
Right. What's that called? Like a vinyasa style? Like it's
not like a very Eastern driven. Sure. Like, so, because sometimes Christ followers are like, oh, yoga, scary.
Right.
And so, but there is a very, the athletic world has adopted yoga because it is a great full body workout.
Yeah.
And I remember we always talk about like those poignant moments. First, I remember the first yoga class I took, and it was at an LA Fitness. There were not yoga studios at LA Fitnesses. This would have been in like, I don't know, 2006, like 5, 6, 7. And I am naturally flexible. I always have been. I have like some weird joint things where I actually have to be careful that I don't like hyper extend because I'm hyper flexible. And so for one, if you've listened to us for very long, you're going to understand this next statement. I was good at it easily from the beginning. And so I enjoyed it. If there were grades to get, I would have gotten, high marks. And so that motivated me because it wasn't something I had to like really learn how to get better at. I was naturally good at. I have long arms and long limbs, and so there are things that I can do in yoga, not because I'm talented, but just because I literally have long limbs. And so there's certain poses and stuff that I can reach, not because I worked at it, but I went for it the first time and it was available to me because I just have long arms.
Yeah.
And so because I was good at it, then it fed my, motivation. But then I started to see results of like just, a little bit of toning in the legs. And so I saw improvement in flexibility and in strength and balance. That was definitely one. I'm not just naturally a balanced, individual in every sense that you could take that. But so that really was the first time I had a healthy relationship with working out because I just loved it so much. And so I kind of abandoned the forcing myself to, be on the elliptical for an hour at that point because I was like, I actually love working out for the first time. And eventually I got certified as a faith-based yoga teacher. And so kind of went all in with the yoga, and then I found hot yoga and was like, what the heck? This is amazing. So all that to say, I came at the whole working out thing from a different, I would say rest wasn't something I struggled with.
Oh, yeah.
I think rest is where I could lean in and do more rest and not really restful rest. The binging, TV or whatever that really isn't resting my mind and soul and spirit. And so I would say over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, as I have gotten back into more aerobic forms of working out, whether just walking, I'm not a runner, but walking or doing the elliptical, and now this last year, the journey with weights and stuff, rest has become more of the conversation again, also because I'm in graduate school, because there's a lot of things happening. And so rest is a part of it in the sense that it's trusting him with that time.
Yeah.
To your point, it's easy when you start doing things like weights. When you are enjoying it, you think, well, I'm going to go 7 days a week because I like it. But being intentional with, no, I'm not going to do anything today on purpose. To be intentional to say, okay, God, I trust you.
Yeah.
That this isn't about me, checking a box or, I don't need to do this every day to be healthy.
Right.
It's about being active and moving. And so coming full circle, rest, now I'm seeing the healthy balance of it, where it's not the lazy kind of wasting time, wasteful rest, but the good rest that's intentional, that I am choosing it because I trust him with that space to say, I don't have to do X, Y, and Z today.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I'm hearing you say and what I feel in my heart is that I used to work out in a way that was punishment. Like I felt like I ate too much food, so I needed to, like, I would bargain with myself. If I eat this, I'm going to go work out for 2 hours, or like next week I'll work out like an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. And so there was this punishment factor to it. And now my workouts, and what I think you're saying is that your workouts are more of like, I just want to feel good and I want to be healthy. And in turn, what that is that's resting in God and saying, like, I'm not punishing my body because I ate something. Right. I'm not punishing my body because I'm trying to control a physique. I'm simply trying to make my temple as healthy as possible. And I trust you to do the work. Yes. And so I'm going to move and work out in a way that I believe is good for me. And when you show me something different, then I'm ready to take that different path. Yeah. And so that's what I think. I hear you saying. Absolutely. That it's not punishment. Rest doesn't necessarily mean you're laying on the couch. Rest also can mean like mentally, I'm not stressed and upset or worried about my workout.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's being at peace with all of it and not having this scorecard, to your point, in your mind, whether with food or with working out, that we're not keeping score. There is no score being kept.
Right. So our movement, in that, it definitely can be worship and not punishment. Absolutely. Yeah. That's good. So as we think about like right now, your life right now, and this is always going to be a process. Yes. As we age and change, our bodies change, our minds change, our schedules change. There's new science. I mean, there's just things, right, that come into play. And so what do you feel like God is showing you this year about your health and sort of softening in your heart?
So it's interesting because it really does speak more to, I think, our season of life. Age is, we're that midlife, that oldish, 50ish, something, getting close to that, where you do see different changes with different things, the skin looking different in certain areas, and deciding to grow old gracefully while also not reaching a point where it's just like, oh, well, I don't care. Everything is just gonna, go in the toilet at some point. So I'm just gonna let it all go. It's like, well, no, how can I, in peace and in confidence, recognize, changes happening, and whether it's elasticity of the skin, like not being as firm, and or noticing something, like whether it's like your elbow or something, and it's like this, you're just like, oh my gosh, like that looks like a 90-year-old person's like elbow. So I think for me it's having humor with the things that I see that are okay. Like I have way more gray hair than I did like a year ago or 2 years ago, and seeing, sometimes like we've talked about makeup that's kind of more for oldish skin, because it does get different. And so I think it's not pretending like those things aren't happening or I'm not seeing those things, but it's having a sense of humor. It's having even just the gratitude for it. Yeah. And letting that all be a part of the journey and like a part of the process. Yeah. And so I think it's there can be fear. Like if I think about, what someone looks like in their 70s, you can get a little bit of like anxiety of thinking about, oh my gosh, myself is like 60 or 65 or 70, like, oh, what's that? But, resisting the urge for me, because of my past with being obsessed with the outward, keeps me from really doing any of the medical things. And not saying that they're, right or wrong or indifferent, but I don't want to bring that back in, knowing my history, if that makes sense. Sure. So it's really just continuing to choose. Like I can say today, I'm not going to do any of the things. And then, when you look in the mirror one day and you're like, is that my face? Like, is that what people see? Of being able to still just walk with the Lord in that, to grow gracefully, to accept the changes and have humor and,
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's such a real thing that we battle. I remember a couple of years ago walking with a good friend of mine, and I mean, I was just thinking about like my knees and how I wasn't real happy with like the skin on my knees. And I remember like thinking, I'm going to look at her knees, like just glance over my shoulder. And I looked and I was like, oh, good. Her knees look like my knees. And it was like, okay, I need to, we shouldn't compare ourselves, but I was like, okay, it's normal for a body this age for your knees to look like that. Like I'm not 20. My knees aren't perky anymore. And I know that sounds so crazy, but they're not perky. And so it's just,
I didn't know perky knees were ever a thing. I didn't celebrate my perky knees when I had them.
When you're 20, you don't know you should celebrate perky knees.
Yeah, I never,
But that's fine. It's
the
fine.
urge to lift up my pant leg right now and look at my knee is strong, but I'm not.
You have on wide leg pants. You should do it.
I'm not going to do it.
You know why? This is totally a rabbit trail, but I won't do it because, winter not shaving is real. Like
it is real.
Yeah. I mean, you got to stay warm in the winter.
Yes.
So
it does get to a certain point that it becomes uncomfortable.
For sure.
And that's when TMI, we just keep going down the trail you took us down, because I take a lot of baths, especially in the winter, and then I'll shave after I'm done enjoying my bath. Man, I gotta get a cup of water and extra rinse that tub, because it'll look like a porcupine just blew up in there in the winter.
It's a real thing. It is a real thing. Sorry for the guys listening to this podcast, but all the women life understand. Yes. The women understand.
And my husband understands.
Yeah. No, I feel like too, God is softening me in the same way what you're talking about. It's just like accepting my body. Yeah. And going back to what we just talked about earlier is like releasing control of even the workouts. If someone needs me for something when I would normally be working out, or my family needs something or whatever, just let it go. It's fine. Like one day, I used to think one day was the make or break of my body. And now I know like one day is nothing, 2 days, 2 weeks. I mean,
right.
you can get right back to it,
Yeah.
So I think that's really good. Do you feel like you're experiencing more freedom in this stage of life around your food and body?
Oh, I mean, yeah, 100%. It's only grown over the last 25 years. And there were specific things, I think, in the beginning, some of the things that we've talked about with the food being good or bad, with me recognizing, my emotional connections and all of the different, like, ungodly beliefs that I had about what food could do or what it meant for my identity. And then I think the growing part of it, the last, decade or so, one of the last wrestles I had with the Lord, it's going to make me emotional, was around taste buds. Because part of the last things that was the most difficult for me was there were just times I felt like I was a slave to my taste buds. That even though I was experiencing growth and I was seeing, freedom and success, there would still be times where I felt like I didn't have the self-control, and that I would end up, going down a path, or whether it was just, overeating or whatever. And I remember because the whole food journey was just this ongoing conversation. I had journals and we've shared all of our notes and stuff. And I remember praying and talking to him one day and like sincerely praying, if you would just take away my taste buds.
Yeah.
This was before COVID. I've had COVID and I didn't lose my taste buds. But so this was before I even knew that was a thing. But I genuinely was like, if you could take them away, then I feel like I would be free.
Yep.
And I remember in that moment almost just feeling, whether it was through the Holy Spirit, like how that grieved God's heart, that I just sincerely was asking him for that. And that his response was just very loving and tender and kind, of like, but I gave those to you as a gift.
Yeah.
Like they're not supposed to be a burden, they're a gift.
Right.
That I want you to enjoy food. And so that moment, I think, was another, part of the journey of embracing that it's okay that food tastes good, and it's okay to enjoy the taste of food. And part of what we've talked about, you've alluded to the book of Romans, and that is at 2 different times in 2 different places where we didn't know each other. We weren't even close to knowing each other yet. The book of Romans is where God took each of us to show us what his word says about finding freedom and walking in the spirit versus the flesh, and why we struggled so much with the rules and the laws and the diet, that just invokes our sin nature. And so for me to walk in freedom of there are no restrictions.
Yeah.
And I can, we mentioned I can have 2 cookies today and then I can have 2 cookies tomorrow. That was revolutionary to me. And so taking the labels off of everything, that there was nothing bad, there was nothing off limits, there was nothing that was restriction, and that I can enjoy the way that things taste, and invite him in maybe to help me think through, okay, how much am I going to have, and when am I going to have it? But just that he wanted to be a part of all of it. And that my taste buds were a gift, and that he wanted me to enjoy the things that he had given me. That was a big part of the journey. That now it's crazy now to realize how much I don't think about things.
I know.
And that it's, my day isn't filled with what I'm going to do or not do, like
food. Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I had a very similar prayer. I didn't ask God specifically to take away my taste buds, but I asked him to take away my desire to eat, which I felt the same way. I was like, how much he must have been grieved when he thought, but I gave you that desire. Like, you need food for your body, And so there was that moment for me in part of my healing journey, for sure. And, one of the things that I say about taste buds to people is like, if God didn't want you to taste things, he would not have given us the Lord's Supper. Forget all the feasts in the Old Testament, which were important, right? Where he was showing us the importance of commingling food with his spirit, like of who he was and the life he has for us. But just think about the Lord's Supper and like how Jesus was like, eat and drink this and remember me. You know, that's huge in our lives. But I feel like the freedom piece for me, just recently, if you go back to like older episodes of our podcast, which sounds funny to say because we're only
last year,
like 6 months into this, I guess maybe January.
September, October.
Is it 6? Yeah, 6 months. So it feels old but new still.
Yeah.
But if you go back to older episodes, we talk about this cake that we both love from this bakery in Waco. And recently I had purchased a whole cake thinking that we were going to have company for the weekend. Well, things fell through and we didn't. So we have this whole cake right here. And I remember Jeff and I had both had a piece. I think you came over and had a piece.
I did.
But the cake was in there in the fridge. And I remember like 3 days went by and I was like, oh, there's cake in there. And in my old life,
oh my gosh,
I would have woken up every day.
It wouldn't have survived like 24 hours.
When can I eat that cake? I would have been in there taking extra bites. I would have been like, okay, how many hours do I need to exercise to eat a piece of that cake today? Or maybe I eat 2 pieces. And it's like, for me, 3 days went by and I was like, oh yeah, there's cake. Like it just never crossed my mind because I'm not constantly thinking about food. And so for me, just that freedom of like that, you know, right now there's a buzzword, food noise, like it's going around, food noise. It's a big thing. And for me, that food noise, it calmed down, you know, when God healed that place in me.
Yes.
And so I just feel like there wasn't, I used to have woken up, like I would have been like food noise because there's cake. Now there is none. Yeah. Like it just isn't a big deal to me. And so,
well, and I think just for people who relate to the idea of food noise, I can tell you like restrictions are the thing that's going to give you food noise. Yeah. And that's part of what the Lord showed us in Romans, where he tells us that the law invokes the sin nature. Yep. Just plain cut and dry. Right. So that means that anything, you know, the written down that do this, don't do this, immediately is going to invoke our sin nature to now I'm going to go do that thing. And so that's that food noise getting turned up. And I experienced this in such an interesting way back in, it's whatever year the flooding and everything happened down in Houston. So I think it was like 2018, 17 or 18. And so I was with my dad. We were out by his house where he lived and going into a Walmart to like do some grocery shopping with him. And as we were walking into the Walmart, there were these big pallets of all this different like food and stuff. And there was a handwritten sign on the front of it that said, "Do not touch." And so this is where my dad and I were so the same, because we're walking together. We both see the pallet and the sign. We're both thinking the same thing. We both look at each other because we know, like, when we walk by that pallet, touch, like, we're going to touch it. Just because, like, if there had been no sign, we would have had no desire to touch it. But because there was a sign that said, "Do not touch," we both knew we were going to touch it. Well, as we came up on the pallet, on this side of it was another piece of paper that also said "Do not touch," but then it said donations for flooding victims. Okay. And the desire to touch left me immediately. Wow. And it was during that season I was still very much in the just kind of journaling all the different things that God was teaching me about the food and, you know, just finding freedom. And that was one of those things where with what I was reading in Romans of how the law invokes sin, that I felt like the Lord was showing that when you know the heart behind something, when you know God's heart behind his instructions to us that our body is a temple, to not be conformed to the pattern of the world, to offer our body as a living sacrifice, that's not the law that then invokes the sin nature in us. And so when I know the heart behind everything that he asks me to do, that's what cancels and silences that sin nature.
Yeah.
So when I know that God wants me to be healthy and active for as long as I can, because he loves me, because he wants me to enjoy all the things that he's given me to enjoy, and to celebrate and to, have the cake or, enjoy a yoga class, that when I know him, and that's what it all comes back to really, is when I know God, I know his word, and I know his heart for me, that's one of the things that will help also turn down that food noise, because I know his heart behind. Maybe there is a time when I have the choice between, cake and a salad, and I'm going to pick the salad.
Sure.
But the reasoning and the heart behind it is totally different.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's later in the day, and if I have sugar right now, I'm going to feel terrible when I wake up in the morning, so I'm going to eat this. The choice and the process behind it is so totally different. Yeah. And that was the biggest just continuation of the journey that still continues today, of just seeing his heart behind the different things.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good. So really what we want people to hear us say is that, everything regarding health under the umbrella of food and body image, like we need to have that restful place where we're trusting God with it. Yeah. And, just letting him be the one that guides our steps. Yes. And, rejecting the lies that diet culture has sort of put over us. Right. And backfilling that with God's truth about who we are. Yes. And so when you think about like your whole story, the last 47 years of your life and how food and body image have played a part in that, like what's something you would tell your younger self?
Oh man, I would speak to her identity, just because I know that was the root of why she couldn't understand that she was enough and good. Not even just good enough, but just purely like good in and of, herself. And so it would be identity, that like you are good. God sees you. Yeah. He loves you just the way. There's no change that yes, we're going to do some internal transformation, but it would probably be the verse that's in it's 1st or 2nd Samuel, where it's talking about when Samuel was identifying David, and the Lord said, man looks at the outward appearance, God looks at the heart. Yeah. I would probably introduce that verse to her. Like, yeah, man does look at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Right. Because I think there would have been, some freedom to unlock from there. What about for you? What would you tell yourself? Yeah,
no, I think the identity piece is so big. And I love how you didn't tell your younger self about food or body. It was like, here is your true identity. Yeah. And I think that I would tell my younger self not to waste so much valuable time just worrying about those things. And like just the wasted amount of brain space that I could have used in being present with people and enjoying people, because at the end of the day, our bodies are the least interesting thing about us. And like I don't leave an event and remember someone's body shape. Right. I leave an event and I remember our conversation. I remember, what they tell me that they're interested in, maybe what they do for a living, about their family, about trips they've taken. Like those
their
are the
story,
things, their story. Yes. That's what you remember about people. And that's what attracts you to people, right? I'm never attracted to people based on their size or their weight. I'm like, whatever. I'm attracted to you because your heart and your mind and like who God created you to be. And so, I think just like encouraging younger listeners to know that like there are so many parts of you that are so much more important. Your body is the vehicle God has given you to do all the things for him. So it is super important. Yes, keep it healthy, but don't obsess over it. No. And so, I think that for sure. I think, as we wrap up, I want to think about the woman that's listening today. Probably, most of our listeners are oldish women like us. And so, like, what's the one thing that you want her to know about her body?
That it's beautiful. That I don't have to see you to know that, because you are created in the image of God, and he doesn't make anything that's not beautiful and pleasant and amazing, because how could he, if it's in his image, then he's not capable of creating. And so no matter what you have been told by yourself or by the world, regardless of what any number is today on a scale or in a clothing tag, is irrelevant when it comes to your worth and your value, and the love that God has for you. Like, you are so worthy and so valuable, and that's the thing that I think he wants you to know the most, because that's where then that relationship can begin, for him to come in and fill you up with that love, to tell you who you actually are, and that who you actually are has zero to do with the outward appearance.
I love that. You know, what I would say is, I want to speak to the part of the body that's in our head, our mind. Like, I want women to know that it's never too late to find freedom.
That's good. Yep.
Because I think so many women who are in their oldest years are still dealing with the bondage of food and body image struggles. And it is not too late. God is standing ready to redeem all that and to restore it back to you. And so, yes, I echo everything you said, because it was beautiful. Your body is good, and you are beautiful, and God wants to renew your mind in that area. So there's still time. Don't lose hope, because I know it's a real struggle, and Sarah and I both felt that struggle for many years of our lives. And you know, I feel like we were both blessed that in our mid-adulthood that God redeemed and restored that for us. Not to say we've never had a struggle again. Not to say there've never been days where we were like, my body. You know, we all have those days. But, you know, for the most part, it's not our all-consuming thought.
Right.
And so it's not too late. There is freedom for you. And so find a good counselor if that's what you need. Find a good nutrition coach if that's what you need. Find the person that can help you. And maybe it's not a person. Maybe it is just sitting, you know, with God in front of him, because certainly the Holy Spirit can be your counselor and can be the one that walks you right into that freedom. So,
and we haven't said this, and I know you're not going to say it, so I'm going to say it, that we'll put in the show notes the link to your other website, the Nourished Body and Soul, because you are a nutrition coach. You are fully capable, and you're walking with lots of women right now, but you do have space to walk with more women. And so just because I know you won't say it, I will, that you are available and would love to
What
journey.
do you mean, Sarah? I love self-promotion.
So
So, well, this has been great. I've so enjoyed this month.
I have
and
too. It's been really good.
We've got some good stuff coming up, you know, starting in February. So we're excited about that. What are you excited about walking into the end of your week and your weekends?
So we've got my mother-in-law's birthday is coming up, and so we're going to get to celebrate that and celebrate her. She's just a bright spot in our family, and so we love getting to celebrate her. So we're going to do that this upcoming week, and that's going to be a good time for all the family to be
Your
together.
mother-in-law is so precious. First of all, we didn't even know her, and she made us a gift last year. And then I had never met her. Of all this time, like, we've been friends, and I had never met her.
And she goes to our church.
And she goes to our church. But
she does go to a different service.
I was going to say, I think she doesn't go to our service. But it was so funny. Several months ago, I was walking out of the church, and she stopped me, and she said, "Are you Kara Price?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I'm your mother-in-law." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, no, I'm Sarah's mother-in-law. You know, she was just so excited, like, to finally meet face to face, that her words got tangled, and it was adorable. Awesome. She's so cute. And she's just like this fun little size woman. She's so cute.
Yeah, she's pocket size.
Yeah, that's right. To us tall girls, for sure. For sure. Well, we have a family birthday this weekend too. Coming up, you know. My daughter her birthday's coming up, and so we'll be celebrating that, and it'll just be a good time, because family birthdays are always great, and there's cake. If the person chooses cake, which my daughter will choose cake.
Yes. Good.
So, yeah. Well, good. Well, we encourage you, as you're listening, go enjoy the life God's given you. Go walk in full freedom in food and body image. Yeah. Find it, because it's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. It is. All right.
Okay. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for spending time with us today on That's Why We're Friends.
We hope you laughed, felt encouraged, and are walking away with a little more hope for your day.
If you love this episode, make sure to follow the podcast so you never miss what's next.
And share it with a friend who needs a little encouragement, because that's why we're friends.
Some products or services we mention may be paid promotions. Any advice shared should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Our conversations and opinions are meant for encouragement and entertainment only.